Welcome to the Dental Brief, the world's direct, right-to-the-point podcast produced to get you the information you need to learn and grow your practice. To learn more about our guests and find links to information discussed on our show, visit our website, dentalbrief.com. On to today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dental Brief. Today, I have with me Dr. Dave Striegel. Dr. Striegel, say good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, we're so glad to have you here. It's great to have you on the show. I can't wait to get into your background. I'm going to let you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here. And my background's a little bit unique in that I have a PhD in sports psychology. Started my career many years ago working with professional athletes, and found that those concepts and principles apply to people who are not professional athletes but just want to perform well at whatever it is they do. And so that's one of the things I learned very early on, is that we all perform. And if you have an outcome that you want consistently over time, then you perform. And so you may not be on the sports field or on the golf course or on the basketball court, but like in this case, I found a niche in the area of dentistry, believe it or not, because about 20 years ago, I was introduced to a group of dentists who were really just wanting to figure out ways to improve themselves. And at that time, we were focused more on just training them physically and mentally in general terms. But the more I got to know them, I realized that this stuff really could apply to what they do on a more everyday basis. And then I had a longtime friend of mine who started or was involved with a dental financial management company with his dad for many years. And we reconnected about 13 or 14 years ago in San Diego. And he said, the type of stuff you do with athletes could really help my dentist, because we put together these great plans for them, but then they struggle to implement them. And that's really where I have spent all these years honing my craft, if you will, is helping people to be able to perform better under whatever the pressure is that they find themselves in their workplace, make better decisions under pressure, etc.
The timing of you coming on the program couldn't be better, because we're in a dynamic right now. And I think it's going to continue on for quite some time. And I'm not talking about specifically the pandemic itself, but the pressures that it's creating, the pressures on team, the pressures on patients, the pressure on doctors. I know that sports psychology has to really be focused in on helping people in those pressure events, right? I mean, sinking that putt or hitting that free throw with no time left on the clock to win a game. Talk about the pressures that you're seeing some practices have right now, and some of the experiences that you're hearing from dentists.
The pressures I'm seeing, well, there are many, but a couple of that I'm seeing that are really prominent have to do with at the team level as well as at the patient level. So not just how you interact and lead within your team, but also lead your patients. And I think that's one of the things that often people forget, and dentists forget, is that you actually are leading your patients. When times are good and there is no pandemic and there's no kind of specter hanging over our country as to if you step outside of your house, might you get sick. In normal times, there's a constant flow of patients through your practice, and patients are generally saying yes, or they're inclined to say yes more frequently than no. And however, when there's this underlying stress that everyone is under, it puts a real pressure on your communication element of making sure that they feel safe, that they can actually come to your practice. And I'm finding that under pressure, and this is something that's been borne out in the neuroscience research as well as psychological research, is that when people find themselves in a threat response, so when their brains feel threatened, which is absolutely what we all are going through right now, we tend to struggle to be able to process information quickly, and we tend to freeze. You combine that with all these restrictions that we're placed under, which is you can't go outside of your house, or if you do, you have to wear a mask and stay socially distanced and all those things. All those things are counter to the way things have been and the way we normally are accustomed to performing and having, kind of reaching that peak performance, that zone that we talk about in sports, but does exist outside of sports. So I help my clients see that there really is an opportunity for you to step forward and separate yourself and be a real conduit of leadership, not just to your team, but to your patients as well, because we all need that leadership message coming from somewhere. And in the absence of it, we're going to be listening to whoever's yelling the loudest or whoever's feeding us information. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to leave it up to chance.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone does, but here's kind of the dilemma that I think you can help our audience with, and I want to kind of jump into here, is that I think leadership can happen, and it can be positive or it can be negative, right? So leaders or someone can be leading someone into an area or down a path they don't want to go into, and of course, leadership can be very positive, and leaders with the right messages can do amazing things with a team of people. Let's jump into sports here a little bit as I tie this together. I love playing sports. I'm pretty good at a lot of sports. I thought in this time, hey, why don't I get a pool table, because I can do it in my house, and it would be relaxing and fun and kind of somewhat athletic, right? Take some eye-hand coordination. So I bought this pool table, and then I watched a YouTube video. I've watched 3 or 4 YouTube videos, and I thought, wow, I'm going to be like this amazing pool player. In my head, before this thing got delivered, I was an amazing pool player. Like, this is going to be awesome. People are going to watch me knock these balls around. I'm going to have a great time. It's going to be so easy. I thought it was a good pool table until I actually got the pool table. Now I realize how horrible I am at this and how much work needs to go into it. How does a practice know if they have leadership issues? What's a telltale sign that maybe someone isn't a great leader and it's something that they need to work on? And you can help out with this too. I want to make it said that I know personally that leadership, very few leaders wake up in the morning and are great leaders. It's something that takes a lot of work and training and effort. So I want to say that first. I don't want to knock anyone down here at all, but how do you know if somebody has a leadership issue if it's just not a strong suit for them?
Well, the word that comes to my mind is clarity. So if I want to find out if someone is a good leader in their practice, I'll ask their team. I won't ask them, are you a great leader? Though, refreshingly, many dentists are pretty clear on whether they are or not, and it's really not a matter of yes or no. It's a matter of, are you afraid of being a leader, really? Because being a leader means that you have to step out in front of the people you're leading and make decisions, as well as have conversations, provide accountability, feedback, all those types of things that go into being a great leader. And those of us who have had any kind of team sports background, we kind of get that because we were in that mode with a coach providing us feedback. And that's one of the things that I think is important today, is for all of the dentists who want to really thrive in this pandemic and moving forward, to seek ways to provide clarity for their teams and for their patients. Because right now we are in a tremendous place of lack of certainty, lack of clarity, lack of connectedness to each other, because all the feedback we're getting is that we're at risk when we get close to each other, when we communicate with each other, when we even go outside.
Sure. Dr. Striegel, give me a couple of actionable steps, right? Providing clarity, I know that's one, but give me a couple of actionable steps our audience can take today to, one, do a checkup maybe to see where they're at, and then maybe steps 2 and 3 are actions that they can take to really put themselves on a path towards success.
One thing that I would think that if every dentist who listens to this podcast could do with their teams would be to create if-then scenarios for their practice looking ahead. So what the research has shown is that positive thinking, which we know is very valuable because it provides hope. It provides the idea that we have faith that things are going to get better. But positive thinking alone has been shown actually to be demotivating toward goals, toward achieving goals. So it's the positive thinking combined with the focus on the reality and the barriers that we're likely to face. It's the combination of the two. So what I find that most people want to be positive. They want to think that this is going to end at some point and everything's going to be better. Where the people will thrive is if they then set up the if then. If this happens, then we're going to do this. So if it doesn't end when I think it will, then this is what we'll do. If we get shut down again, then this is what we're going to do. If our patient flow is limited, then this is what we're going to do. That does several things. It provides a plan, so actionable, meaning this is what we're going to do. And that's really what you're asking, I think, is actionable steps. What can we do? And that's what the number one thing I would suggest a dentist do right now is create the if this happens, then this is what we're going to do, and involve their team in creating the then part of the statement. Because that's going to help the team quiet their brains down from the fear that they have and the threat that they're feeling and feel like, okay, we have a plan. It may not cover every scenario, but you can come up with the top 5 things that you expect to happen and create if-then statements or if-then responses to those.
Yeah, that's it's great advice. If people had done an if-then scenario for the pandemic, I think things would have looked a lot different in March and April and May, and some states even today. And then with what potentially could be coming, I still wonder, even just going through it, such a short period of time, the shutdown is what I'm talking about. If dentists are really have their teams connected for the what are we going to do next in that if then. So great advice. I really love it.
And I think that beyond that, it has to do with managing your emotions. And me coming from a sports background, and my clients like to always tease me because I think in sports metaphors a lot of times. But there's actually I was listening to a podcast recently where the podcast host was interviewing Russell Wilson, who is the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Anybody who's an NFL fan knows that Russell Wilson's one of the best players in the NFL. And Russell Wilson really strives to get his brain and his emotions to neutral. He doesn't want to be too high. He doesn't want to be too low. His objective is to get to neutral. And that is where, for him, his best processing of information happens. His best response is not just to successes, but also to mistakes, allows him to be able to look ahead and see through the chaos that often happens in a sports environment. And I see the same thing happening here. We're all facing, across the country, spikes in the coronavirus cases and worrying about what that's going to mean. And where people tend to get themselves in trouble is when they allow the fear and the emotions to run away with them and they stop thinking rationally. And so I borrow from sports when I can because it makes sense to me. And I think it makes sense to a lot of people who say, oh, yeah, okay, that totally makes sense that when you're riding on a high and everything's going great, you got to also be looking for, okay, if this stops, then what are we going to do? Or if you're in the middle of a really tough time, okay, what do we do to keep our motivation and keep turning toward each other as opposed to starting to kind of disintegrate, as a team? So stay in neutral.
Dr. Striegel, appreciate it very much. We're so thankful to have you on the show. I want to ask our guest to check out your website. It's DaveStriegel.com, and that's spelled STRIEGEL.com. Visit the website, ton of great information on there. I know you do one-on-one sessions as long as team sessions too. Dr. Striegel, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I just wanted to thank you again, Patrick, for the opportunity to come and be on the Dental Brief. And I love the field of dentistry. It's just so many great people who are trying to do good. And I just want to help them be able to navigate this challenging time easier, faster, and better.
And we appreciate you doing that today. Thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Did you know you can weigh in on today's topic on Facebook? Search the Dental Brief on Facebook or visit our website, dentalbrief.com, and just follow the link. We look forward to having you join us again on another episode of the Dental Brief.